good of people.
Hello and a very good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha Television. I'm Frank Rausen Pereira. I'm filling in for someone else, but it's good to be back doing a show that I helped launch here at Rajya Sabha TV. Let's begin the headlines. CBI arrests former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram from his residence in the INX Media money laundering case. Congress leader to be produced before CBI court today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to leave for three-nation tour. Agenda in France includes G7 summit, talks on defence, maritime security and counter-terrorism. PM to visit UAE, Bahrain from the 23rd of August. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu concludes three-nation tour of the Baltic nations. Visit to Estonia. Vice President urges Indian community to cooperate towards nation building. Hospitals, banks and schools in Jammu and Kashmir are functioning smoothly. Governor Satyapal Malik reviews security situation, calls for constant alertness across the region. And Team India look to start the World Test Championship on a positive note. First test of the two-match series against West Indies to begin from today in Antigua. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning, the CBI has arrested former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram in connection with the INX Media money laundering case. He was arrested by the probe agency on Wednesday night from his Jorbagh residence in New Delhi. Chidambaram, who was kept at the CBI guest house after his arrest, will be produced before a special CBI court today, where the agency will seek his remand. The CBI was looking for Chidambaram since Tuesday after his anticipatory bail application was rejected by the Delhi High Court Enforcement Directorate, and CBI had issued a lookout circular against Chidambaram. Before the arrest, Chidambaram on Wednesday appeared at the Congress headquarters along with his party colleagues and addressed the media. Reading out a statement to the media, he said he was not hiding from the law. He said there is no charge sheet, filed by either the ED or the CBI before a competent court in this regard.
I have not been accused of any offence, nor has anyone else, including any member of my family, been accused of any offence. In fact, there is no charge sheet filed by either the CBI or the ED before a competent court.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court will hear P. Chidambaram's interim bail plea in the INX Media money laundering case on Friday. Chidambaram had approached the Supreme Court against his arrest in the case on Tuesday. He is facing arrest after the Delhi High Court rejected his appeal for anticipatory bail on Tuesday. Ravindra Singh Sharon, our correspondent, joins us for more on this particular issue. You know, Ravindra Singh Sharon, as far as Chidambaram's arrest is concerned, what's the latest that we are hearing?
Yeah, good morning, Frank. Yesterday, when we saw that in a dramatic move, the CBI has arrested former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram from his Jorbagh residence. After that, he was taken to CBI headquarters for further investigations. Today, when he will be produced to the court, there is a 24 hours of the window for the investigating agencies to produce any of the arrested persons in front of the nearby magistrate, and he will be produced to the special CBI court where this case is going on today later in the day. The normal procedure is that he should be produced there at 2 o'clock, and then exceptions when the justice is required, then he can be produced in the first half of the court's proceedings as well. By now, what the information which we have received is the CBI officers, they have been claiming that after the arrest of the former finance minister, he is not cooperating with the CBI and not giving the required information which the investigation officers are asking to him. Today. And this is the plea hopefully the CBI will take today when they will produce Mr. P. Chidambaram in the CBI court today, and on basis of the same information, the CBI may seek his police custody for at least 14 days.
Right.
After that, what can happen is the enforcement director, the simultaneous investigation of the case has been under the investigation of the enforcement director as well. They are investigating the prevention under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, how the money was laundered in this particular case, and both the investigations are going on simultaneously.
Sure.
What the sources are saying that after the decision of the court on his police custody or CBI custody, the enforcement directorate also may seek to investigate separately or jointly with the CBI in this case prevention of money laundering. So today is a very important day. The CBI will come to the court and they will give the information to the court what they have received during the course of investigation overnight from Chidambaram, the former finance minister, and what else they need to require that can only be received, the information which can only be received by the CBI in the custodial interrogation. Frank.
All right, Ravindra Singh Sharon, thank you for joining us with those details and taking us through the latest as far as this particular issue is concerned. Moving on now to our other big focus of the morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 2-day state visit to France from today. During the visit, Modi will hold talks with the French President Emmanuel Macron to strengthen strategic ties in key sectors such as defense, nuclear energy, maritime cooperation and counter-terrorism. He will meet his French counterpart and address the Indian community at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. He will inaugurate a memorial for Indian victims of 2 tragic air crashes of Air India flights in 1950 and 1966. The Prime Minister is scheduled to attend the G7 summit where India has been invited as a partner country.
Prime Minister will be on bilateral visits to France, UAE and Bahrain. And he will also attend the G7 summit as Barrett's partner from 22 to 26th of August. Prime Minister will be visiting France at the invitation of President Macron for the 2019 G7 summit in Biarritz as Barrett's partner. Prior to that, he will be in France on a bilateral visit. The Biarritz summit is on 24th to 26th of August, and the bilateral meetings in Paris between 22nd, 23rd of August.
Prime Minister Modi will also visit the Gulf nations of United Arab Emirates and Bahrain from the 23rd to the 25th of August. Well, Akhilesh Suman, my colleague, joins us on the phone line for more. Well, Akhilesh, let's remember that these visits to Bahrain, UAE and France are extremely important, especially in the backdrop of India deciding to abrogate certain sections of Article 370.
Right. This is very important visit as far as, Prime Minister's outreach to 2 types of nations. One is G7. They are the most important countries strategically and also economically in the world. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting all the G7 leaders, maybe informally, and formally he is meeting French President. What we have got to know that earlier French President was thinking that he might be having bilateral with Prime Minister Modi around 24. But later he decided that no, it should be much before that so that they can have enough time to go into bilateral summit. So I think meeting with French President is very important. And it is also very noteworthy that in the recent Security Council meeting, that was informal meeting, France played very important role in favor of India. So I think this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be 2 ways. One, he will have a very good understanding with 2 major Gulf nations, the UAE and the Bahrain, and on the other he will have understanding, and he may have time to correlate with them on the issue of terrorism as well as on the issue of economic downgrade in the world. And other than that, he will also have opportunity to maybe informal meeting with US President Donald Trump, where they can also ease out some of the differences that has cropped up about Jammu and Kashmir. So I think this is very important visit, Frank, of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
All right, Akhilesh Suman, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us there with those details. Moving on, now Vice President Venkaiah Naidu successfully concluded the visit to 3 Baltic nations. Before departing for Delhi, Venkaiah Naidu addressed the Indian community in Estonia. He urged the Indian diaspora to contribute in India's development agenda. He informed the gathering that India has made significant progress in its journey over the last 70 years.
I'm very happy to know that Indian community in Estonia has done well and having integrated with Estonia's society and culture while preserving their roots. My advice to all the Indians who are working here, keep in touch with your roots. Whoever comes to abroad, other countries, my advice to them, including youngsters, is go. No problem in going, because we also have enough population nowadays. Go, learn, earn, and return. At the end of the day, you have to come back to your motherland to serve your country.
Well, pitching for investments in India, the Vice President told the Indian Estonia Business Forum that India's growing middle class is of over 200 million and 400 million, I beg your pardon, and its vibrant business ecosystem is fostered under a stable democratic governance system and makes India an attractive destination for international trade and business. Reiterating that India was committed to respect Mother Earth and have an inclusive and sustainable growth, he said that India has itself a target of producing 175 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2022, including 100 gigawatts of solar energy. The Vice President has invited the Estonian government to participate actively in the forthcoming India-Europe 29 Business Forum to be held on the 20th and 21st of November in New Delhi, which is a focused event for strengthening cooperation between India and the 29 countries of Europe.
India offers one of the largest investment opportunities in the renewable space. The Government of India allows 100% FDI under the automatic route for projects for renewable power generation and distribution. Our growing large middle class of over 400 million and a vibrant business ecosystem fostered under a stable democratic governance system and make India an attractive destination for international trade and business. Our sustained efforts to create a business-friendly environment have led to a spectacular jump of 65 places in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index in the last 4 years. India has become an IT superpower in the recent decades, with more than 53% of our GDP coming from the service sector. India has been growing over 7% for several years. The forecast for the future is equally optimistic. India is likely to grow to a $5 trillion economy by 2025. India's labor force is expected to touch 160 to 170 million by 2020. Based on this rate of population growth, increased labor force participation, higher education enrollment, among other factors, according to a study by Associam and Thought Arbitrage Research Institute. India is expected to achieve upper middle class income status on the back of digitization, globalization, favorable demographies, and reforms.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addressed the heads of foreign missions located in Estonia on the last leg of his Baltic nations visit. The Vice President reiterated that restructuring of the state of Jammu and Kashmir was completely an internal affair and stressed that the misinformation spread by the neighboring country was totally unwarranted. Here's more.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addressed heads of the Estonian Parliament mission at Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tallinn. Calling the restructuring of Jammu and Kashmir a totally internal affair, the Vice President asserted that India's neighbour was spreading misinformation.
Many of the development initiatives are not reaching that state, and that state being a strategic state because it's the border, and then as our neighbor is trying to take advantage and then create a wedge between people of the rest of the country and that state. The parliament in its collective wisdom have decided to do away with that, and that has happened, and now people are happy about it. But unfortunately, some people are carrying negative propaganda against the decision of the government. Nobody has got any right to interfere in the internal affairs of any country.
The Vice President also gave a call for reforming multilateral bodies like the United Nations. He said it was essential to democratize such organizations to reflect contemporary realities. The Vice President reiterated that India valued democracy, freedom and independence, while asserting that at the same time, India recognizes realities of an interconnected world where cooperation was the only way forward.
The Indo-Pacific as a new theater for geostrategic contestation or an exclusive club of limited number of nations. It includes all nations in this geography and other beyond who have a stake in it. We will work with all the people in the region to keep the seas, space, airways free and open, to keep nations secure from terrorism, piracy, to ensure global cyberspace is free from disruption, and to ensure access to and responsible use of global commons.
India and Estonia signed 3 MOUs on the occasion, including extension of cooperation in cybersecurity, granting visa exemptions for diplomatic passport holders. Rajkamal Rao's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Wednesday held talks with the President of Estonia, and in a joint statement, India and Estonia reiterated their resolve to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. Here's more.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Wednesday held talks with Kersti Kaljulaid, President of the Republic of Estonia. In a joint statement after discussion, both leaders reiterated their resolve to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations.
We recognize the importance of building a global order based on respect for international law and national sovereignty. We reiterate our resolve to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. We also discussed common concerns such as climate change and global warming. I invited Estonia to join the International Solar Alliance, in which India is playing a leading role in order to enable rapid deployment of solar energy globally and to facilitate transfer of technology.
Vice President said the Estonian President and his delegation reviewed bilateral relations and potential areas of cooperation between both the nations.
I congratulate Estonia on their election to the non-permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council for next year. In this context, we are looking forward to working closely with Estonia in the United Nations Security Council. President Kaljulaid and I agreed to strengthen the bilateral cooperation in trade and commerce, especially IT, e-governance, cyber security, innovation and education.
Naidu also called on Jüri Ratas, the Prime Minister of Estonia, at his office at Stenbock House. After attending a lunch hosted by Estonia's President, Naidu met Hen Poulas, President of Regi Kogu, at the Parliament of Estonia. Earlier, the Vice President was given a ceremonial welcome at the Presidential Palace. He also paid tributes to fallen heroes at the Vabadu Square.
The Vice President and the Estonian President held high-level delegation talks in the Presidential Palace in Estonia today. Both the delegations have discussed on matters of national and international importance. Issues such as extending economic cooperation, IT and telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, climate change and other issues have been discussed. Both the leaders have reiterated their commitment to fight against the menace of terror at the global level. With camera person Dushmanta, Rajkamal, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval held talks with his Russian counterpart in Moscow on Wednesday. The two NSAs spoke about bilateral cooperation between the two national security councils as well as regional and international issues. Doval also took up the issue of preparations for the Prime Minister's visit to Vladivostok for the Eastern Economic Forum in early September. Well, in other news now, in Jammu and Kashmir, the situation has improved considerably, especially in the Kashmir Valley. Jammu and Kashmir Governor Satyapal Malik on Wednesday evening reviewed the security situation in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh regions and called for constant alertness to ensure peace and normalcy. The governor also emphasized the need for constant alertness, preparedness and synergy among various departments and agencies to enable dealing with emerging situations in a coordinated and effective manner. As many as 774 middle schools out of 3,000 reopened on Wednesday in Kashmir for the first time since August 5th. Jammu and Kashmir administration said that no law and order problem was reported from Jammu division, where all the schools and educational institutions are functioning normally. Stray incidents of stone pelting in some parts of the Kashmir Valley was reported but were dealt with locally. Jammu and Kashmir administration said hospitals and banks are functioning normally in Kashmir. Well, Union Home Secretary Rajiv Gauba will be the new Cabinet Secretary. Gauba, who is a 1982 batch IAS officer of Jharkhand cadre, will replace P.K. Sinha. The Appointments Committee of the Cabinet has approved the appointment of Gauba as the Cabinet Secretary with a tenure of 2 years from the 30th of this month. It has also approved the appointment of Gauba as officer on special duty in the Cabinet Secretariat from the date of his assumption of charge till he takes over as Cabinet Secretary. Moving on to some sports news now, where India will look to start their World Test Championship on a positive note, especially after a complete domination over the West Indies in the limited over series. The first test of the two-match series will begin today at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in North Sound, Antigua. Earlier, India thrashed the West Indies to sweep the three-match T20 International Series and won the three-match one-day International Series 2-0. That is a wrap on this newscast. Have a great day ahead.